Good day, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Skytale Insights. Very excited today. We have three of us here. We have J.W. Oliver, and we also have Eric Pastan, whom most of you know, our Director of Consulting. J.W. is the Managing Partner of SupportDDS and Zimworks.com. His objective is working with these businesses to assist organizations to leverage growth, increase productivity, manage costs, and free up time by utilizing virtual and/or remote teams. He has a lot of experience being a business owner, having started over 20 businesses, and his bio is too long to mention, but he's done a lot of other things. And fun fact, he was apparently born in France. JW, we're so happy to have you on here. We've known you for quite a few years. We've seen you at conferences. You always have the best swag, extremely creative things that you do. Thanks so much for joining us, JW and Eric.
Yeah, thanks for letting me come on here as well. You're right. I don't know if I have any good swag. I just got a pretty yellow jacket.
Well, it works. It works.
Yeah, definitely stands out in the crowded space. You can always tell where SupportDDS booth is, and not only from the jackets but also the buzz around the booth. We've seen you and the company just grow so much during the time that we've been able to really be associated and known you. I think to start it off, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of what you do and what some of the challenges are that you see that you solve for DSOs in kind of the contemporary space we sit in.
Yeah, most everything centers back around that labor issue where people are struggling, whether it's to find qualified labor and sometimes just to find labor at all. I think post-COVID, it even became more relevant that they were having trouble finding, locating, training quality teams. And we've seen the minimum wages rise and the cost of labor rise and the output probably decrease. Everybody wants to work from home, but obviously in a dental office, sometimes that doesn't work. But what we've seen is there's a number of roles, everything from what we call the Director of First Impression front desk to all sorts of back office needs, all the way through the revenue cycle management to accounting, et cetera, that can be done. So we really see it, Eric, as more of a resource that we can provide to help people not only scale, which I think is one of the pieces, but also it's with labor being such a big part of the overall cost, whether a DSOs, you see it 25-30%, and then in just group, single practice, 35%, we can help mitigate that and help some of that same store growth as well.
That sounds like a dream come true when we look at some of the P&Ls of some of the groups that are out there. Where do you see kind of the top challenges that your clients face and the answers that you deliver for those challenges? I guess beyond simply people cost a lot of money, right? And everyone costs a lot, but are there specific areas that you think should be focused or that you do a really good job focusing on that they should think about?
Yeah, I would say there's that low-hanging fruit, those ones that are just easy to do, quicker, right off the bat, and that to me is just answering the phone. When you look at the low rates of the abandoned calls, it's so funny. You can ask anybody, hey, what's your rate of missed calls? It's probably 10 or 12%. You go get some dashboard and you look at it and it's like, okay, yours is at 35%, and they're just always floored. But the national average is 32%. And so I think the first thing is, I'll just use easy numbers. Say somebody's spending $10,000 a month on marketing and they're not answering, but 65% of the incoming marketing calls, you just missed 35, or you flushed down the drain $3,500 worth of your marketing dollars. And that translates into a client, and that translates into a long-term patient or hygiene patient or whatnot. And so they have value, right? So I think the first one I always say is just answer your phones. And that is a common task, not just in the dental, but in the medical fields in general. It's just pick up the phone. And I know that sounds so silly, but it really is. You want to make an impact on your business. You want to fill those empty seats. You want to fill up the doctor's schedule. Then I think just answer your phone. And that really is a good place to start. And then that person can also do some of those redundant tasks, insurance verifications, confirming patients, et cetera, that are probably not getting done as well.
That makes sense. So if I'm a DSO or group practice or of any real size, and I think about reaching out for help, how should I identify how to ask for help or what areas to ask for help in? Is there somewhere that I should start?
Yeah, I would probably back up and go to your team, because if you're especially if you're a DSO, and let's say you're a smaller DSO, you're probably the doctor, right? You started it and you've added a couple of practices. Maybe just go down to the team level and figure out what are those things that you can't get done at the end of the day. You obviously have to try to answer the phone, but the bigger thing is you got to help that person that's walking in or out of the practice. So what are those roles that are maybe not getting done? Hygiene recare, could be unscheduled treatment. That's always a big one. You open a small practice up, just a single practice, and they'll have $500,000 worth of unscheduled treatment that just hasn't been followed up on. So I think if you start by speaking to your team and finding out, hey, two things. What are you not getting done? And then secondly, what do you hate to do? What are those things that you just dread doing? And it's probably an insurance verification. Now there's AI for a lot of this, and it's getting better to assist with that, but somebody still has to manage that process as well.
It's interesting. I think we were just talking earlier as we were catching up and both coming from two major conferences that just took place, some of the other bigger conferences kind of on deck. And, it sounds like in 2025, it's going to be a lot of similarities in 2024 with AI being such a big focus. And what can we do from a tech perspective? How do you look at kind of what you do to augment with tech, or do you use tech? Or is it really people? And how do you look at kind of the future of that relationship between tech and people performing all of these duties of centralized services or within the world of the DSO that they're in?
Yeah, I think it's exciting even for us. A lot of people see it as a detriment, or that's something that's going to we should be fearful of, but we actually embrace it. We try to leverage it as much as you can. I was actually at one of the conferences this weekend. We've got some really exciting things that we're going to try to offer to our clients. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you have let's say you have a 5 office DSO that's using us to do insurance verifications and maybe part of their revenue cycle management process. And maybe they're leveraging 3 people to do that. It's 5 practices, they're leveraging 3 people. What we want to be able to do is take the automation that's out there and implement it to make our 3 team members more efficient so they can take on more roles. So not only can they reduce maybe their time in half, but what are some of the things that are not getting done? Who's manning the live chat on the website? Is there some small payroll entry, maybe bill.com or AP, some kind of a support there they could do. So one of the misnomers about using outsourcing, we're different than most in that we don't do task oriented at all. We really focus on providing a full-time resource. So many times when you go just look at outsourcing, you're picking somebody to do, okay, I'll just keep using that, the insurance verification. Well, with us, that's not all they can do. If they get caught up, maybe they can start confirming appointments. Maybe they can pick up those overflow calls. We've got tons of offices that are using automation, but they still hit the zero. The call comes out of it. Somebody needs to pick that call up, right? And so they're using us as an overflow while the team members are doing other things as well. So it's important to figure out how you can leverage it, because it's coming and it's changing. I don't know if it does everything they say it can do. Everybody kind of overpromises a little bit on it's going to 100% answer all your phone calls. Like, well, maybe not. But I definitely think it makes you more efficient. And I think that's where we want to come in and stand alongside the companies that do this too.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you kind of touched on the efficiency of what these additions can bring to the practice, whether it's, outsourcing or, sorry, using support DDS or AI or some combination of the two. Can you touch on a little bit what I think is one of the most important pieces of this too, and that's quality control, right? You deliver a sense of consistency. How do you look at that and kind of in the framework of what you do to be able to deliver that consistent and quality throughout when these offices are seeing turnover and retraining and things like that? I might be asking a leading question, but would love to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah, well, look, turnover is a big role, big piece of it. I think, especially when you start talking about, I don't want to say uneducated or unskilled team members that you may have in the office, but attrition, turnover, unhappiness within the office is really a big piece of it. And so I think what we've been able to do is develop a culture. I mean, our attrition is 6% a year. It's 0.52% a month or something. Traditional outsourcing BPO spaces, you're seeing that in the 10% per month. So you can see 100% turnover on an annualized basis. So I think for it to be effective, it has to be embraced. The biggest problem we have is when people want to, hey, I want to do this. I want to do it to save money. I want to be more efficient. But the rest of the team hasn't bought into it. So the rest of the team is a little bit, hey, I kind of feel my job is in jeopardy, right? So I'm going to figure out a way to poo-poo this whole thing so I can pull the rug out from under it so that I can show that it's not going to work. So those are some of the real challenges I think we see right now with leveraging remote teams or virtual teams.
That's an interesting point. How do you identify when that's happening?
Yeah, it usually happens the most of the time it happens is when the doctor or the owner, he gets on the phone, he loves it. He's like, "Oh my goodness gracious, I can get Sally and Bob and so they're going to be so much more efficient. Let's do it." And he just says, "Let's interview, let's get it going. We need 3 people. Let's start in 2 weeks." And then the office manager is not in the loop. So what we do is we intentionally say, hey, number one, is there somebody else that should be on this discovery call? So everybody's on the same page. We'd love to add them in now. Or when we go to the interview process, we encourage, because we let them interview their team members who they want to select. We try to have them bring on those people so that they're part of that process and they feel vested in the selection process. But you'll really see it, Eric, when they don't, like I can think of one just recently. They said, "Yeah, this is just not working for us." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, what kind of KPIs are you using?" "Oh, we just know they need to be doing 10 a day, and they're just not getting it." Well, did they know that? Did they know what their expectations are? Have they been trained? So I think it's 2 things, 3 things maybe. One is they don't embrace it. 2 is they don't train properly. I get asked this all the time, drives me crazy. Somebody will say, "Well, are we going to have to train them?" And I'll think, well, do you train the person that starts in your front desk, or do they just sit down and go, "You got it"? So it's not only the buy-in, it's the training, and then it's putting in some sort of a KPI, some sort of a measurement system, even if it's just one thing, like, "Hey, Eric, we expect you to make 52 phone calls every day." You go, "All right, I know what my minimum is now." So it's those 3 things that are probably the biggest obstacles we face, truly.
I'm curious, JW, are there any roles that you see if I'm a practice owner that just lend themselves very well to outsourcing? Like, how would you rank that, or how would I think about that if I'm listening and thinking, this really sounds nice. I want more efficiency. I want to protect against turnover. What should I look for? What works well?
Yeah, I think there's some, I hate to keep using the word, saying low-hanging fruit, but low-hanging fruit that is easy. There's a really low point of entry, low training, because we do a lot of the training. That would be doing things like the insurance verification, the resubmittals maybe of claims that get denied. And then I think including in that is just recare and confirming patients. You know, one of the biggest problems, I believe it's 55 or 58% of hygiene patients cancel within a 24-hour window. So that's a problem, right? So they're calling in either the morning of or maybe the day before saying, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it tomorrow. And they found the research that if they can be called 2 days prior, that actually reduces in half. So if they call and say, hey, Eric, just call in to confirm that you have a reservation. We love that word. We have a reservation with Dr. Smith tomorrow. Wanted to make sure you're still going to be able to be here at 2 o'clock. We're looking forward to seeing you. That will reinforce it. But who has time to do that, right? Who has time to do that? And I'll ask you this, Ben, what's it easier? Is it easier to reply back, no, I'm not coming on the text messages? Or is it easier to tell somebody in person that you're canceling, right? I mean, that hitting no or yes on a confirming your appointment is super easy, right?
I like the text.
But
when
text
I'm
is way easier, right? But if somebody calls you, which sometimes that's hard, and confirms it, but they have found that will, I believe it's 50%, will significantly reduce those cancellations within that 24-hour window. So I think those are some really easy things when you look at the confirming patients, the reactivation of patients. Hey, you hadn't been in 18 months. We'd love to have you come back in. That's a big one. Insurance verification, manning your chat. Who wants to go message something on a website or send requests at a website and 3 days later you get a reply? That's you're done, right? And those are things that you can really turn the needle on. So those are some simple things. There's more complex areas, but I think those are really simple areas.
It sounds like you can just make a list of what are the things that you least like doing, and that's where you start to reach out and give you a call, right? Which makes sense because it's usually the things that, can be done remotely that they don't enjoy doing or aren't super proficient at, and it's the soft skills and kind of the things that need to be done in office that tend to be interesting. And so, it's a symbiotic relationship that you have with them. So, that makes sense and tracks. You had mentioned something a minute ago and you brought up KPIs. And I think as Skytale, we love KPIs. We love to be able to measure things to kind of eliminate that idea of someone picking up the phone and saying, this just isn't working. And you're like, well, in our eyes, it is completely working because this is the expectation we have, and you might have a separate expectation. So how do you prevent that misalignment of expectations with, the millions of different clients you have? I guess, is it through KPIs, or is it like we just don't pick up the phone when they call, or, is it somewhere in between?
Yeah, we actually hold an integration meeting with new clients. And then, so we have a client success partner that we have in our office that all of our clients have, that they have one of those that they can deal with. But at the very early onset, and you think you might think it's surprising, but I don't know, you probably wouldn't because you've dealt with so many different DSOs and small practices and large practices. But it's amazing when we get on the call and we've got an individual who can help do customized reporting. So we'll try to figure out what it is, and we'll say, okay, well, you've got Carolyn starting today as your director of first impressions and also doing some outbound calling. What would you like to measure? Man, I don't know. What should I measure? And the good news is we've done it enough that we can help say, well, you probably could measure number of calls answered. You probably could measure a number of confirmed appointments from your marketing calls or new patient calls. We probably can put dollars on that at the end, so you can say, how much is this? What's the return been for me on this? But yeah, if you're not, as they say, measure what matters, and some people just aren't. They're not thinking about what they're measuring, which goes back to my very first comment. They don't even know how many phone calls they're missing. Now, that's not terribly uncommon, but they may know how many phone calls they're missing, but they're not doing anything about it. Mm-hmm. They're saying, wow, we're sure missing a lot of phone calls every day. Yeah, we need to get better at that. Okay. I'm not sure what that means, but there's no action behind it as well. So that's pretty common.
So do most of them set up some sort of a dashboard that that you can use from a communications perspective so that, let's say, monthly or quarterly or however often they want to revisit kind of the success of this, and also probably understand, hey, do we need more support than we're currently getting? Because I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, but people probably tend to start with a limited scope, and it grows over time as they see it either be successful or there's some sort of limiting factor, and usually it's bandwidth of that individual that they have from from support DDS. And so is that the kind of the way that you develop your relationship as time goes on?
No, that's exactly right. I mean, we start off coming up. First of all, we usually ask, what are they doing now? Do you have a shared tool, or using some kind of a shared, either in your dashboard, in your software, in your CRM, which we can access? It could be in the PMS itself, or do you have, maybe we got some fairly large clients. I mean, with 100 offices, we track it on these Google Sheets. Let's keep it up. We download from there. We're like, that's fine, whatever they're using. So we're happy to leverage whatever they're currently using, but I would say half of the time they're looking for ways in which they can make it successful. Obviously, so we don't lose them, we're looking for ways to make sure they know what that return is, because that's a big piece.
Yep, that makes sense. And it's interesting because you have kind of on one side of the scale all this data that we can measure, but then you also have this idea of a DSO and the culture that they have. I'm sure you've seen a million DSOs and you've seen a million different cultures. It's not always the same. So if I'm a business owner, and I think a lot of them are pretty protective of their culture, how do you ease their minds when it comes to using someone from an outsourced perspective? And what do you say to them that kind of is comforting for them to think, yes, they can understand our culture? You use the words director of first impression. So, if I'm scared that, hey, this first impression is going to be made by someone that, that's sitting elsewhere, how can we guarantee that happens in the way that we want it to happen?
Yeah, that's probably the one that you could protect the most. And I always return it on myself, or flip it on me and say, yeah, if I've got a new client calling in and they're going to answer the phone, it's a new sale potentially, then, I want to make sure the right person is answering that. So I think it's the same thing.
Sure.
That's always a tougher one, because you have to prove yourself first. They need to hear the language, which, we do have the Queen's English and the King's English, if you want it now. And we do have that piece going. But it's interesting, Eric. I had just this weekend, we were at the event, and one of our clients was actually stood up while I was speaking to a group and said, hey, we've had our team members for over 4 years. The key to it is we have immersed them into our culture. And we talk a lot about that. We talk about sending them swag, sending them T-shirts with the company. If Skytale had some people, then we would want them to have Skytale T-shirts and coffee mugs. And then the big
I'm still
thing
trying to
is,
get mine.
You've been there a while. They still haven't got yours.
He has a mess though.
That's is that taped on there? That is just handwritten on there.
That's right.
But it's a big deal, because you think of somebody working, we're 12,000 miles away, almost 10,000, 12,000, depending on where you come from. And we say, hey, if you'll bring them into these morning meetings, bring them into your huddle meetings, if you got one morning or Wednesdays, whatever it is, and then keep them as part of your team. I mention this too all the time. We don't see them as employees. We see them as team members. And when you embrace it as that, when you embrace them as part of your culture, part of your team, make them feel valued and appreciated, evaluate, correct, praise, motivate, all those things become really critical into now having you a bona fide team member who believes in your system. Otherwise, if you treat it like it's this third-party vendor doing some services for you, it's not very successful. You'll see that attrition and that turnover.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And that's kind of what I was getting at because um I've seen this succeed and I've seen it, kind of fall flat, not necessarily support DDS, but just kind of that idea of outsourcing or finding third-party solutions outside of an organization. And there's a lot of times there's external finger pointing, like, oh, it was a bad company or bad, this just didn't work out for whatever reason. But I think you hit the nail on the head. If you make them and embrace them into your team, they can't help but to understand your culture. And maybe it's not day one, but as that relationship proceeds, they'll become part of your team. And so I love that response. It's what I was hoping that you would say, and I think that that was exactly
Yeah, I mean it's crucial, and I'll give you this one story that's pretty interesting. It's a fairly large group we have. They got about 40 team members, and either their CEO or their COO or one of their C-suites once a month they bring in lunch. They buy lunch in our offices, and then this person comes in and he sits on a Zoom call like this. Everybody logs in and they have a little virtual lunch. And he'll ask questions like, "Well, Eric, where are you from? Um, oh, you have kids? What kind of sports do they do? What kind of sports do you do?" And that takes 30 minutes. They rotate some people, so I think each person does it, I don't know, 3 times a year. But they've invested in a big team, and I'm telling you, their attrition rate is super low because they feel like, my goodness, we just had the CEO on the call with us, and they're a big company. So I think it's which willing, how you're willing to spend your time as well.
Perfect. Yeah, I totally agree. I think we've gone over. I guess I should ask: is there anything that we missed? About that concept of outsourcing work that you think is critical from a perspective that we should cover?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think what we try to really impress upon is if don't do it halfway, don't try it. If you're going to invest the time, invest the effort, invest the training, get to the integration, come up with your KPIs, put all that together. We can almost always tell, I mean, I'm going to guess within 95%, maybe higher success rate of if it's going to work. And usually it's because they prep, they put things together, they make sure things are done correctly rather than just saying, yeah, let's start 2 next week and give it a shot. Oh, okay, that doesn't sound very good. So, I think that is the really, really key. And now, well, I will say this. Dollar for dollar, it's going to save about 50% across the board. That's just a pretty good number. Could be higher. But what you don't factor in, some people get it, some people don't. They'll say, well, Jay, your services are $12 an hour. I'm like, yeah, that's about what it comes out to be. Well, I can hire somebody here locally in my office for $12, $14 an hour. And I'm like, well, maybe, but our person is going to have a university degree, quite highly educated, very well spoken. And as you know, the quality that you can get at that low end of the pay scale is sometimes difficult. But then really it's the other pieces. Let's say they are even. But when you average in all the benefits, all the extra things that come along with being an employee, they say it's about 35%. So just take that 12, probably get you up to 17 or 18. Then they take up some space in their office. And then some people will say, well, yeah, and then I got to deal with all the personalities as they all kind of intermingle and mix together. So it really can be a big financial savings when you look at that all the way around.
Yeah, for sure. And I think probably when you measure the ROI that's coming out on the other end, I would imagine it's higher too from a revenue that they're bringing in perspective. And so the margins are probably greater as well, when you have someone that's capable of executing some of the menial tasks that, your $12 an hour person, meaning the person that the office hires, may not be as excited to do. So I think, when you start to look at it kind of dollars in and dollars out, the gulf even gets bigger. So
well, and I'm sure it's the same thing you experience. We hear, you hear this a lot. it's when do you do these kind of things? When you got one office, two, three, it's the same thing of when do I add a CFO, or when do I add a CEO or a COO, and when do I need to, as the doctor founder, or maybe the founder only, maybe not a doctor, when do they need to start scaling? So it's the same thing. It's just looking at how can my office manager maybe do more high productive returns. Maybe it's just dealing with the in-person patients more. So it's determining when the right timing is for you as well.
It's interesting listening to both of you. We, JW, had outsourced someone. She's now a team member. Don't worry, we did it the right way. We talked to the company and she wanted to come on board. But as you were talking through things, I was just thinking back to that and some of the lessons that you're teaching here. Absolutely agree. I think on the front end, maybe one thing was there was such comfort on our end that that company knew better the role that we were looking for, what would succeed within the organization. They interviewed to make sure it was a good fit. And then, when she came on board, some of the things thematically both of you were talking about have really, I think we did a pretty good job including her in the culture, including her as part of the team. We didn't see her as outsourced. We saw her as Skytale. I think we sent her some swag. I mean, even stuff Eric doesn't have, I bet. But, and it just worked really well. I don't think any of us saw it as this is not a team member. And it just worked really well. I think maybe another comforting piece for us, and fortunately it never happened, so would be curious this, but had she left that company, from a turnover perspective, I think it would have been on them to find a new team member for us, and I think it would have been almost immediate. So I think there was a continuity aspect to it from a turnover perspective that we found comforting as well. But no, I think that everything you've said, I don't think there's anything that you've missed, unless you want to maybe give us any action items or call to actions. If I'm a business owner, I mean, some of the things that you mentioned, 50% savings and things of that nature, it would be extremely attractive, as well as, the education level of your team members, the fact that what roles that you're filling typically within these medical dental organizations. I don't know if there's a good call to action or checklist that I would take home as a business owner.
Yeah, I mean, probably most business owners are a little bit out of touch with what their front, especially if they've grown a little bit, right? What struggles their front desk team may be really, encompassing or having or struggling with, action items that they have. So I think getting in touch with the things that are happening. Maybe you are seeing, gosh, our dental office over on First Street, we just keep going through people every 3 or 4 months. What's going on over there? We're getting bad people. Well, it could be, but it also could be that they're doing way too much. They're completely overwhelmed. And they just look at it like, what do they think I am? Some kind of a unicorn, and I'm just going to be able to pop in there and do all this? So, look, people are always thinking that money is always the number one thing. Every statistic you'll see, it's not about team members. It's not about the money. Most of the time, it's being valued and appreciated. That's always the big one. And so I think just going to your team and saying, hey, how can I help you? And I'm bad about that as well. I can't think I do that every day, but I need to sometimes just say, hey, you seem like you got a lot going on. Is there some places, some areas I can help you? And that may help you formulate a strategy to help you implement some teams. And then if you're struggling on the profitability side, which, these margins have shrunk, right? Used to be, especially in the dental space, margins were big and you didn't have to worry about what you spent and you just went and hired. That's become more and more. And of course, the big kind of the hot topic now is same store growth and, increasing your margins, reducing your overhead. So where is that? Well, how can you maybe increase the revenue, which would be things like keeping your hygiene chair filled, making sure that you don't have any holes in your doctor's schedule, filling those up as well. And then on how can I reduce? So if you take the combination of of using remote teams to look at those areas that could need improvement in terms of revenue, and then you can also focus on the areas where you can reduce the cost of the labor, which is big. If you could tweak both of those numbers, you guys know this from all the M&A type work. If you could reduce up both those numbers 5% on both sides, that can be a big number.
Oh yeah, and then you multiply that by something. That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's huge. So sometimes you don't have to make these big swings. Just look and see what you can do incrementally and be consistent too.
That's great advice. So talk to your team, listen to your team, lean on them, and go from there. JW, if someone wanted to get a hold of you or your organization, what would be a good way to do that?
Yeah, you can go to supportdds.com. You can also just email me. I'm happy to help. It's jw@supportdds.com. And so we're here to help. We're even here just to answer. A lot of times we get on the calls and it's fun to brainstorm with somebody about struggles they're having. And I think we just try to be a solution for people. So yeah, love to hear from anybody that needs some help.
Or look for the yellow jackets at your next dental meeting.
Eric, that's usually only on Saturday, so you got to wait to that special day, right, to make sure it's going to fit. But I may have to change that up. Maybe I need red, white, and yellow or something. I need to come up with some better idea.
I don't know. I think you're doing all right.
Well, it seems to be working. Well, JW, I think everyone has always appreciated what a great resource, and you just said it just now. You've been to the industries that you play in. Thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for giving the information. Or if you want a yellow jacket, Saturdays only, it sounds like. JW, Eric, thank you both so much for coming on.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me. It was a great time.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, it's nice. You're genuinely one of the good guys in this industry. You've always been someone that's easy to talk to and just a friendly person whenever you run into. So thank you and appreciate your time.
You bet. I enjoyed it. Thanks for the compliment. I just think we just need to learn to just be kind to everybody. I mean, it's simple, right? I don't have to I don't like everybody. Don't get me wrong. Not everybody I like, but I can still be kind.
There you go.
So thank you, Eric. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Right, and thank you again for listening to another episode of Skytale Insights. We hope you got some great nuggets out of today, and we'd love it if you subscribe.